So we're going to tutor. So what is fistula? That's the very first, fistula. It's very obscure, so I know a lot of people don't know fistula. And can I just get a quick show of hands to see who knows about fistula, and not as a result of the event, the promotion that's been going on through social media, because we've been trying to build a lot of awareness about the event through Instagram, through Facebook, through Twitter. But prior to all of this, who knew about fistula? Hands? Oh, okay. Okay, so quite a few of you, that's good. Okay, so I'm speaking to the converted. But a lot of people don't. Have you asked your friends, like, you know fistula, obstetric fistula? A lot of people really don't. It's very obscure. And I'll tell you what it is. So it's a childbirth-derived injury. So it's a condition that arises from childbirth when women are in labor, when they're experiencing a prolonged obstructed labor. Obstructed, it just means the labor is blocked. In other words, the baby cannot come out. And this is usually because the baby, that's right one, thank you. This is usually because of malpositioning. The baby is not in the right position in the mother's uterus, so that's the first reason, or the size of the mother's pelvis can be too small relative to the size of the baby. So those are the two main factors that lead to an obstructed labor. And I'm just going to backtrack real quick now that she's found it. Opening the slide. Thank you, guys. Thank you for coming. That program, okay, timing is a bit off, but bear with us. Okay, and I wanted to start here because I wanted this to be the very first slide. This is really important. So this young woman, her name is Anafet Ayuba, and I'm going to speak about her a little more later on as I go through. But she's my inspiration for all of this awareness building I've been doing on fistula, for all of the advocacy work. It's Anafet. So I learned about her several years ago. She was a former fistula patient from Niger. So I just want to say that tonight is a tribute to Anafet. I want to dedicate this event to her. I'd like to dedicate the book to her. And she's from Niger, West Africa, in the Sahara Desert, Sahel region. And we wore indigo today, some of us. So I'll just show you my outfit really quickly. I know the Fulanis at the back may know this. We call this lepi in Guinea. I asked Isra to wear dark blue indigo. You can show off your outfit as well. Because a lot of the desert nomads, a lot of the ethnic groups in the desert, they wear an indigo, like a very kind of dark indigo. She's Tuareg. I'll speak about her ethnic group in just a second. So I decided we wear indigo tonight. Okay, so this was planning. Planning started a while back. The process began December 2014. This was in May. We were looking at venues from then, so I was writing out an outline. This is in the SOAS library behind us. So we began planning for this a little while ago. And now back to where I left off. What is a fistula? So it's a hole that is formed, as you can see, between the vagina and bladder. There are two types, which I'll speak to in a second. And fistula occurs as a result of a prolonged and obstructed labor. So when the labor is prolonged and when it's blocked. This is one diagram. You can see the areas of the fistula, one between the bladder and the vagina, or the rectum and the vagina. So in applying all of this pressure to the mother's pelvic organs, so either her bladder or her rectum, the baby cuts off the blood supply to the surrounding tissue, so to the tissue of these organs, causing a hole to form between the vagina and the bladder, the vagina and the rectum. And this hole is what's called the fistula. So in medical terms, a fistula, it merely means a hole. There are different kinds of fistula, but this fistula is an obstetric fistula. So this is the kind we're referring to, obstetric. You can take a quick look at this diagram to see how the tissue dies as a result of all the pressure. More than 75% of women with obstetric fistula have endured labor that lasted 3 days or more. So that's where the aspect of the labor being prolonged comes in. 3 days, that's a really long time. Some women, they labor up to 4 days, 5 days. Anafet, who I showed at the beginning, she was in labor for 4 days. And what is the result of obstetric fistula? It's incontinence. Basically meaning the woman, she has this discharge, this uncontrollable discharge of urine or feces. She'll constantly drip waste products So imagine always leaking urine or feces uncontrollably, you have no control of it. And because she's leaking these waste products, she smells. She always smells, and what happens when you smell, people do not want to be around you, so they ostracize her, they repulse her. She leaks, she smells. So I just thought I would include this one because yes, it is incontinence. She's leaking, she smells, she cannot control it, but it's more than that. It's shame, it's isolation, it's abandonment. Jillian mentioned earlier that some women, they develop fistula at 20 years old, and it's not until they're 80 if they ever find treatment, until they're 70 or 80 that their fistulas are repaired. They don't know what's happened to their lives. One day their lives are going fine, and then the next day they have this condition, and it becomes very obstructive. Obstructed labor is obstructive. Okay. This is a global fistula map. So if you look at this, you can see some of the regions in the world where fistula is quite prevalent. So in many parts of sub-Saharan Africa, in parts of Asia as well. You can take a quick, maybe a second to look at the map. Okay. Some quick facts about fistula. There are 50,000 to 100,000 new fistula cases each year. Every year there are 7 million obstructed labors, and there are between 2 and 3.5 million women living with fistula. 5% of pregnant women will experience obstructed labor. And obstructed labor, it can lead to death. In some cases it does lead to death. If it doesn't lead to death, it's very likely that it will result in a fistula. And so the third bullet point, 2 to 3.5 million women living with fistula, it might seem like a huge discrepancy. You might wonder why. Can researchers not find accurate information? Why is there this huge discrepancy? But you have to remember that fistula, it affects mainly poor women in very remote regions. So because they're in such remote regions, it's hard to have an accurate sense of the scale of the problem. I know some doctors, Dr. Susie O'Neill, she works a lot in the area of fistula. She believes it's about 3 million women. Some researchers say 2 million women. So there does need to be more research, but it is difficult for researchers because the women are hard to access. Okay, let's explain the 2 main types of fistula. So the first type is vesicovaginal fistula. This is the main type. Usually when people say obstetric fistula, they refer to this fistula. So this is between the bladder and vagina, and the result of it is urine, discharge of urine. And then there's a second kind of fistula called rectovaginal fistula. This one's between the rectum and the vagina, so it results in discharge of feces. But there's also something called double fistula. This is scary, it's double trouble, because it means that the affected woman will have both. She'll have vesicovaginal and she'll have rectovaginal, so she'll leak both urine and feces. Jillian spoke to this earlier, so I won't belabor the point. But yes, early marriage, FGM cannot cause fistula, but definitely there are associations. The direct cause of fistula, bear in mind this is the only direct cause of fistula, is a prolonged and obstructed labor. The UNFPA identifies 3 delays that contribute to fistula. These are the 3 delays: seeking medical care, reaching a facility, and then receiving immediate care once at the facility. Because sometimes fistula patients, they do arrive at a medical facility in time, but then they might be delayed once they're there. There might not be a surgeon on staff who can treat them. Nurses might take a while to get to them. They might just be sitting in the waiting room for hours. So these delays can make the obstructed labor worse. Oh, and I want to talk about enough of that. So let me backtrack in my story a bit, in my history, and tell you guys how I got to fistula, how I learned about it. So it was through this young woman several years ago. I was kind of tracing my roots, tracing my origins, my West African origins. I have West African roots. And I was looking at West African ethnic groups, and her ethnic group came up, the Tuareg. And so then, in typing Tuareg, an article about her appeared in the Wall Street Journal. So I looked at the article and I was reading about her experience with fistula, and I was so struck by everything because I had never heard about this affliction in my life. And I said, what is this fistula? And so Nefka, she was in labor for 4 days. She was from a town in Niger called Terbiat. She's from a nomadic family, nomadic people. And her father took her to the hospital in Niger's capital city, Niamey, and she was treated by a team of obstetric surgeons there. Unfortunately, she gave birth to a stillborn baby boy, so her baby died. And her fistula was repaired. So yay, it was beautiful. She went back to school. She was studying French, math, biology. She said she wanted to be a doctor because she was very inspired by a member of staff she met while she was at the hospital, a female member of staff, and she said, I want to be like that woman, I want to be like an important woman. So she said she was going to become a doctor. She went back to school. That's enough that with her teacher. And so it was great. And after reading that article, I decided that I would look some more into the issue of fistula. So then I found another article about fistula, about an Afghan. But this article was very devastating because it said, unfortunately, due to complications of an infection, an Afghan passed away. So 3 years after her fistula was repaired, she passed away. And I think that's what changed my world, honestly, because it was very striking to have her alive in one article and dead in the next. And then it was after that point that I started doing a lot of research in fistula. The story came later on, Boy came later on, so it was all because of an Afghan. This was when I was in high school, so grade 10. Oh, you can't see the full article, but it's okay. Anyway, I did a lot of writing for a student newspaper in high school, and this was one of the articles I had written when I just started high school, so it was about an Afghan. And then a few years later, we went to Ethiopia with my mom and my sister, so this was part of our trip. I made it to Hamlin Fistula, the Addis Ababa Fistula Hospital, and that was a dream come true, an absolute dream come true. And it was there that my work and my understanding of fistula became personalized. It became real at the hospital because I had the privilege of meeting patients there, so you're going to see them right now. That was patient number 1. Her name is Astris. She's from Oromia, the Oromian region in Ethiopia. And she had an obstetric fistula. Later there was Amowadat. She was from the north, a place called Dehana. And some more pictures from the hospital. And it was very interesting meeting the girls for so many reasons. But what occurred to me while I was at the hospital was that they had the same aspirations and ambitions as I had. We were same age group, similar age range. And so fistula, it's a medical injury, they're pathologized as it is. We know they're at a hospital, we can see that they're ill. When I got there, I said, oh my gosh, I don't even want to ask questions about their fistula. I don't even care to know really, because I know that they're there because of fistula. So instead, we spoke about other things. We spoke about school, we spoke about their hobbies, we spoke about their interests, their favorite moments in life. Amowadat, this one, her name is Amowadat. She said she was most happy during the Ethiopian millennium, when it was the year 2000 for Ethiopians. It made her the happiest. And Astris, she spoke about going to school and how she was at the top of her class and how she played sports like volleyball, and she was very active. So these are some of the lives that the fistula patients conduct before obstetric fistula. They're very active young women. Some of them go to school, not all of course, but some have been to school or were in school prior to fistula. So that was the hospital. That's Amowadat again. And then I went back to Canada. Actually, I think this was before, it's December 2011, so it was a little before a trip to Ethiopia. And I started planning. I had this idea of setting up an organization, so I started the planning. So these are the very early stages here, Canada. And so the process of setting up an organization, it was very tasking, but of course very rewarding in the end. So a logo, I really like visuals, I love imagery, so I said, okay, I need to have a really cool logo. So I drew a sketch. I drew the writing for the logo. Maybe some of you can tell what has inspired my logo. It's a secret. Okay. And so then I sent it to a friend of mine who's a visual artist, and he came back with that. So from this to that. Okay. I thought you guys would say, ooh. And so since developing war in 2012 and in Halifax, so I'm from Toronto, those of you who know Toronto, I'm a proud Torontonian, but I live in Halifax. I've been there for 3 years now. I'm, I guess, becoming a Londoner. And so we do a lot of awareness building around fistula outreach with young women from backgrounds where young women who come from countries, or their parents come from countries where fistula is prevalent. So we're having a screening of a film called A Walk to Beautiful. So my mom and I were going around the town. I went with my super stapler, my heavy duty stapler, and we're posting flyers everywhere. So I just want to show you some of the work that we do in Halifax. This was a film screening, so it was well attended, and everyone was amazed. And when they saw the film, they said, "Oh, this is so great! I understand it much more now. It feels more direct. It feels more personal because there's imagery, there are visuals. Before, all we were hearing, everything we heard prior was just abstract. It was all conversation. It was discussion. Now we can see images. So, images. This was sometime after I had developed. I went back to Toronto because we have this literary festival in Canada called the Word on the Street. We have it in several cities throughout the country. And this was the Word on the Street, Toronto. And I had presented a short story on fistula, not this one, but a different one. And so, again, as you saw prior with the article from high school, I began doing a lot of writings on fistula, short stories, TEDx. This was in high school again. So, moving back to the story, to the book, Yeshialem. I decided to write it because I think literature is very important. Creativity is important. And I think literature and storytelling and imagery can be very powerful. And something that was very special for me in writing Yeshialem was the opportunity this story gave me to link writing systems to the issue of fistula. Writing systems, scripts. And Africa has a lot of very old writing systems that a lot of people don't know about. So I wanted to highlight not only fistula, but the writing systems. So around the same time that I learned about fistula in 2008, I also developed a strong interest in African writing systems, particularly the Ethiopian Fidel script, which is derived from an even older script called Ge'ez. And this script, Ge'ez, it dates back to the 5th century, so it's very old, 5th century. And today it's mainly used by clergy in Ethiopia and Eritrea. In this story, I discuss a few other writing systems, such as Tifinagh from Anafket's people, the Tuareg in the desert, which is between 1500 and 2000 years old. So it's very old, so let me jump right into this. And I'd like to open this part with this quote. Africa has such a long tradition of writing, but this is not such a well-known fact. So I'll show you some images just very quickly. This is Tifinagh, Mali, Niger, Morocco. The Tuareg, they're a nomadic group, so they can be found in many parts of West and Northern Africa. So that's what their writing system looks like. So in the book, I want to know how this ties into the story. In the book, Yeshialem, she takes advantage of all these writing systems to effectively overcome, to help doctors and women in her community in Ethiopia overcome fistula, because it's in these scripts that there's information on how to repair fistula. That's a fictional part, but it's all in the scripts. It's all in the writing systems. This is Kidal, it's a town in Mali. So there you have it written with Latin letters, and then on the other side of the stone, it's written in their writing system, their native writing system, Tifinagh. Meroe, Kingdom of Meroe, Sudan, Merotic. So that's also in the story, and it's very old. It's not used today, but it's in the story. I decided to revive it for the sake of the book. So that's also there. Sabian, Saudi Arabian, it's also there. Yes. So in the story, I wanted to include writing. Writing is essential. Writing is key to the story. And a lot of fistula patients, they're illiterate. They cannot read or write, which is unfortunate because a lot of health information, whether in pamphlets, whether on road signs and banners, it's expressed, it's conveyed through literature. So these patients, they cannot read or write. So I wanted to create create a cohesion. I wanted to make a link between these two, perhaps very separate, very far removed realities. The reality of many fistula patients who are illiterate, and then writing, literacy. And as part of many reintegration programs at fistula hospitals, at the Addis Ababa Fistula Hospital in Ethiopia, at the Aberdeen Women's Center in Sierra Leone, at many hospitals, literacy is taught once their fistulas are repaired. And they partake in several activities, some of it reading, writing, school. Okay. And very quickly, so literacy is key, and there are also other ways that are being employed to help overcome fistula. So technology, we're living in such a technologically savvy world, and there's this M-Pesa mobile money transfer system that was developed by a Tanzanian, mobile money transfer system. And a lot of fistula patients are using it because what can happen is that you can transfer the money in a city. Fistula patients in rural areas, you can transfer the money. They'll receive it on a cell phone. They can get on a bus to take them into the city to a medical facility where they can have their fistulas repaired. And this is all happening because of technology, mobile money transfers. So I think this is really cool. There are hotlines in Sierra Leone, Break the Silence. There's a fistula hotline. So women from out of the area can call in and say, or people from the community can say, oh, I've seen a woman with these symptoms, could be fistula, and then they can direct her to the hospital. And again, thank you. I'd like to wrap up my presentation here. So I just wanted to tell you a bit about myself and what inspired me, what motivated me to write this. And I will hand it over to Isra. Thank you.